This is Ray Eason, aka Ray Ia, with the Ancient Tree of Life channel. Ignite your spirituality, or ignite your spiritual awakening. Right. So this is the first sort of live stream that I've done in a while. I'm actually doing a live stream on Instagram, and then I'm doing a recording for later on that I can upload to like all the other social media sites like Facebook, also Instagram if you missed this particular live stream, and also like Twitter and YouTube and the other channels that we have, right? So, happy Saturday. It is Saturday. It is 2:38 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on May 9th. I wanted to put in a video out. I've not created a lot of time to do these videos, and I do apologize. I'm working from home a bit more now. Whereas before, I was actually like driving to or from the office, and then I was doing the videos while I was in transit. Morning meditations or morning contemplations work really, really well for me. So when I'm getting up, I've got like that haziness, and I'm still connected to like the other world and stuff. And I'm able to sort of bring ideas and esoteric, subtle concepts to video, or bring up topics a bit more, so it's a little bit easier. So now, since I'm not doing that, it's a little bit harder. I still do my meditations and my contemplation, but I share them sporadically with you guys now, whereas before it was more of a focused thing. So I'm sorry about that. So today, what I wanted to talk about is meditation. Today's Saturday, and as you know, Saturdays I typically do I do more esoteric work on Saturday, like the deeper stuff, because it seems to resonate with me a little bit more. So that's kind of why I wanted to do a sort of one of these videos today. So once again, this is Ray Eason, aka Ray Ia, with the Ancient Tree of Life channel. And I want to talk a little bit about meditation, right? So I put I put a post out probably earlier in the week about meditation, right? And I know a few of you were asking about meditation. How do you meditate? Could you create some videos or some posts on meditation? So what I did was I wrote something up, but sometimes I feel like when you write stuff up, sometimes you get snippets of the concept, but a lot of times, like, the stuff that I write is like really, really long, and it seems like it's a lot of information. I understand that. So what I wanted to do was I actually wanted to create a video that kind of went over some of this stuff, right? And the post that I put out, that I put on the blog, and I also posted on the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter channels, is about basically how to learn how to meditate, but more so preparation of meditation. And preparation is like a big part of a lot of the work that you do, right? Preparing your body, your mind to do something, because then it's easier to slip into doing it when you prepared yourself for it, right? It's really, really challenging or difficult to do something you haven't done before, because you feel like, well, I'm not good at it. I don't know where to start. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So preparing the mind, the body, the vessel, right, for this stuff is really, really important, right? So this particular segment is going to be about preparing for meditation, whereas it's just about the meditation itself, right? That way you can sort of get little things together, right? Get your mind together and get get yourself centered, and then we'll talk about how to actually do meditation and the techniques, which that part is like super simple, right? You just close your eyes and you breathe, right? It's just super simple, right? But it's not really simple. It's kind of a challenge at times to like shut everything out, right? So one of the first things I want to talk about is basically wanting to meditate. You really have to want to meditate. And I know this is probably a given for anybody that is very versed at meditation, or anybody that's like even interested in it, right? You have to like want to do it. You might think, well, Ray, of course you have to want to do it, right? But some people may want to do it for different reasons, and that's kind of what we need to focus on. Why do you want to meditate? And then want to meditate. So what are some the top reasons, right, for wanting to meditate? Well, one of them is stress relief, right? How do you relieve stress in a world where everything's changing constantly, right? Where we've got this recent global pandemic, right, where we've got like the COVID-19 and the coronavirus, or whatever you want to call it, has like struck the world, right? And everything has changed, right? Everything. I mean, the way we used to work, the way we used to shop, the way we used to socialize, right, is totally gone. Hey, you guys. I'll go ahead and I'll wave back. Um, but everything is totally changed, right? And that kind of causes like a lot of stress. I mean, some people that may have kids, their kids are now doing schoolwork from home or doing education from home, and that's a big game changer, right? When the teachers were dealing with all this stuff, and now parents are having to deal with this, and these kids, they have no time management. But maybe some of your kids do have time management and time management skills, and they do know how to apply themselves, right? But for the majority of the kids out there, the majority just no freaking time management. They need the whip and the and the crooks and the flail, right? To basically get them in shape, get them going, right? So that can cause a lot of stress at home. Maybe you lost your job, that's going to cause stress, and all this stuff is very real. You don't know when it's going to end, right? The world kind of like got either really selfish when this happened, and you start noticing that there are people around you who just like sort of got closed off and went introvert, and they're all freaking out and scared, and they're not like not wanting to hang out or not wanting to talk or not wanting to be around. So that may be affecting you. That may be making you a little more stressed out. So what do you do when you're totally stressed out and people around you are stressed out and you just need to chillax, break away from it, right? And that's where meditation comes in, right? And so wanting to meditate, which is the number one thing that I put on that list, one of the first 5 things, is you have to want to meditate. Well, why? To relieve stress, to center yourself in, maybe you want to start a project, maybe you need to rearrange your home, your living arrangements, how life has changed. You need to center yourself, right? So meditation can be great for centering yourself in addition to stress release. And it has many other physical and mental and spiritual benefits to it, right? Spiritually, you're able to just expand on your spiritual mind, your spiritual body a bit more. You might be able to receive more information, receive higher information when you're in a stressful situation and you do a bit more meditation. You might receive more answers from the universe, whereas when you were comfortable, you didn't get those answers, right? Because life and the universe responds based on situations, right? So if you're stressed out, if you're feeling insecure, if you're feeling emotionally just sort of out of sorts, and you go into a meditation, because your vibration and your senses, your subtle body, your total dynamic is different, you're going to receive different information because you're vibrating differently, right? Whereas opposed to if you were in a comfortable situation, you're going to get information from the universe and from the other energies around you based on you being in a comfortable place, right? So number 1 reason is stress relief. Number 2 would be focusing, and number 3 would be more so becoming more spiritually or esoterically acute, right? So wanting to meditate, a very big thing, right? Wanting to meditate for the right reasons. Number 2, what I like to do is whenever I do a meditation, I either do it bright and early in the morning, right after I've gotten up, and when you've exited that dream world, or when you were asleep and your physical body, your physical mind was gone, right? You were not really focusing on this world so much. You were in the other world. You were focusing either on your dreams, or you were focusing on, maybe not really focusing, but you were kind of going through this dream or going through this other sort of world or other body experience. Your vibrations are a little bit different. So when you wake up in the morning, your mind, your thoughts are a little bit different, right? And so that's a great time to meditate, even if you don't take the shower, and I'll get to the shower part next. That's a great time to meditate because you weren't consciously thinking about the physical things. You were thinking about, not really thinking, but your body or your mind was in a place where it was still coming back to this physical world, right? Coming back to this physical reality around. So I'm going to stop right there and answer a question real quick. So how can you tell when you can receive what the universe gives you? How can you tell? That's a great question, right? what I like, some people call things that happen, like if this happened and this happened, they call it a coincidence, right? And you've heard the term coincidence. I read a book long, long time ago that it was called the 10th Insight. It was based on a series of books by, I think it was James Redfield. There was the 10th Insight. There were a bunch of other books, but I can't remember the names of them right now. And he wrote this book about this person going on a spiritual journey or adventure, and they would just meet people at just the right time that had answers for questions or for dilemmas or problems they had on this path. And he called them synchronicities, right? And that term synchronicity stuck with me I mean, it's been like over 20 years that term has stuck with me. So synchronicities are a big way to know if the things that you're meditating on or the things that you're focusing on, if some external answer or some sort of external synchronistic message or event comes to you, it could be linked to a universal message, right? Very subtly. A lot of people think that when messages come, they have to be like lightning bolts, right? Or they have to be like burning bushes, something very physically manifest and out there. They can be very subtle, right? It could be almost like a subtle thought that you had, a flickering of a thought that kind of came through your mind while you were doing something, right? You could have had a dream about something, you could have asked a question about something, and then later on, something symbolic or something similar to it kind of comes to you. It could be another person that says it to you. It could be a thought that you have that goes through your head that comes to you. It could be anything, right? And if you feel that those 2 points, that thing that you were thinking about, and that external message, if you could think that those two things are linked because there's a line in between, right? Which would be similar to a coincidence or a synchronistic event or a linear point, right? That could be a message there, right? And you shouldn't just stop there with a 2 point synchronicity or coincidence, right? What I like to do is I like to use the 3 point, right? And we know the number three is very special and sacred when we're working with esoteric and spiritual energy, right? Three represents the Trinity. It represents the divine aspect of three, which no matter what sort of spiritual religious system that you have, the three represents either, whether it be in Christianity, you have the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. If you're working with the more older ancient information, you have you have the mother, the father, and the son, or the great mother, the great father, and the son. If you're working more so with a particular divine aspect, say for instance, if you like working with Isis or Aset, then you have Isis or Aset, and then you have Osiris or Osar, and you have their child or their son, Heru or Horus, right? You have that three Trinity or divine aspect. So what you can do is Nikola Tesla said, if you could, I can't remember the exact quote, but if you could understand the magic of, or the understanding of the universe, you would understand 3, 6, and 9. That's exactly what that is, right? So the number three is a sort of a divine number, or a number of confirmation, sort of, right? Because you have a particular thought, right? Or you have a particular inquiry, right? Or a query, right? And then this happens, right? The second point happens, right? But any second point can usually always happen, right? Our minds are very powerful. People really still don't understand, even the specialists don't understand how the mind works and how it interacts with the fabric or the etheric of the universe. But we know that when we focus on something, something else usually happens, or there was usually something else out there, right? Because it might be the very reason that you're thinking about this is because this other thing was out there, right? So you've got these 2 points. Now, if you can learn to wait for a third point, right? So if you can imagine you have 1, you have 2, and then you have this third point, right? And this third item comes into the scenario, and it confirms the 3, and you can see like a unity there between the 3. Then you can start to see this may be something that's a little bit more divine oriented. This is something that's being confirmed by the universe. And then those numbers start to ripple, right? You've got 3, 6, 9. You have if you know numerology, you know you go from 0, which is completion, to 1, which is beginnings, 2s, which are envisionment, 3s are expression, and that's kind of what 3 represents, the expression of something. You have 4, which is manifestation, 5, which is change, 6, which is adjustment, 7, which is belief, 8s, which are power, 9s, which are completions, and 10, which is a beginning and a completion, or a 1 and a 0, right? If you have more information about numerology, check my other video on learning numerology on YouTube, and there's a whole video there on numerology in addition to astrology and stuff like that, right? But yeah, Nikola Tesla was a unique individual who used his brain's ability to understand mechanics, and also he had a connection to the other realms, and he was able to bridge those two, and he became a very extraordinary person, right? So preparing to meditate, let's get back to that. Point number 2, right, is preparing your body or your mind for this meditation. And what I like to do, what I did like a few years ago when I was first really getting geared up and doing meditation, I would take like a really hot shower because I needed a way to relax, right? And I always found that hot showers would like make me feel just very subdued. Sometimes, and I don't know if you guys have done this before, you're either in a hot shower or in a jacuzzi or in a hot tub, and with it being so hot, sometimes you just want to just lay there or sit there and not move and just be like, right? You just want to just be in it. You don't really want to think about anything. Your body is totally like submersed in this very warm or hot liquid, and all you can do is just sit there and just soak it in, right? And that makes your mind sort of give in to what the body is sort of going through, right? So then you have the mind and the body, right? So then you have the mind, the body, and then you have the soul or the spirit. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get on that level where your spirit can start to interact with the universe and the other subtle things out there that you can't naturally get to while in the waking world. So you're using the body in the hot water in order to subdue a part of your senses. You're using your mind to sort of drift or let go, which is what you're using the hot water for, is to be in a state where you can let go. And then that's when this other little thing starts to happen, right? Your spirit or soul or subtle body will sort of take will sort of take off. Astral projection, it's sort of, I don't like the term astral projection, and I had somebody else say this too, because it's so like commercial or modern astral projection. And I remember for years thinking, I can't astral project. I tried it, and there was this, I remember reading this book and about how your body is supposed to leave from you. There's a cord between, and then you can drift and all this stuff. That has never, ever, never happened to me. But after working with the ancient Kemetic or ancient Egyptian information and energy systems, I learned that the very things that I was doing was invoking this ability to leave this particular physical realm and to have my mind be linked to whatever it is my soul or my spirit was doing when I was meditating, right? That because I was drifting, I was leaving, I was somewhere else, and I was able to receive this information. I came across some information a few years ago about how shamans would do this, right? Shamanism, and not just Native American shamanism, right? But how shamanism, essentially, in a nutshell, is a walker, right? It's basically an astral walker, or a walker who walks the other side, and they gather information and they bring that information back to their community and they share it with their community. That's essentially what it is. So is that sort of akin to astral projection? Probably just a different terminology. And sometimes terminology, you guys, sometimes that plays a big part in how your brain thinks, understands, and can process or comprehend. So I prefer the term walking. I prefer the term sort of shamanism, or maybe astral walking, astral projection. Not so much, because I'm not really projecting myself, right? And I use projection for another term, but it's more so it's kind of astral walking, or whatever you want to call it. all consciously, right? It's a bit. I don't know if I would say consciously. I was telling a friend about this the other day that there's three aspects of the brain. You've got the unconscious, you've got the conscious, and you've got the subconscious, right? So, are you consciously doing this? You're consciously invoking the ability or opening the ways, opening the doors to do this. And then you're allowing your subconscious to sort of activate a little bit. And then you're subduing the conscious, right? You want to subdue the conscious because your conscious mind is used to thinking, processing, and doing a lot of work here in the physical world. So you don't want to think when you're doing this type of work. You want to receive. And thinking sort of impedes receiving, right? You can think after you get out of the meditation. You can think before you get into the meditation. But your ego is kind of linked to thinking, and it's the driving force behind the physical realm, the physical body, and everything. So you really want to subdue the conscious, subdue thinking, and more so receive. And when you're tapped into the subconscious and the unconscious, then you can receive more, and you can receive more on an unconscious level. And you use the subconscious as a sort of middle place to get to the unconscious. So you have the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious, or however you want to sort of tear them up. But the conscious kind of presides in this world. The unconscious is in between here and the unconscious, right? So you really want to get into the unconscious when you're doing a meditation, but you have to step into the subconscious. You have to let it use its faculties in order to get you to the unconscious. Excuse me. So preparing by using a hot shower or bath, it can subdue those senses. And if you take one for a long enough period of time, your thoughts might even start to, while you're taking the shower, while you're in the hot tub, while you're in the hot water, your brain will start to drift because you're not consciously thinking, you're trying not to be consciously in the moment, right? And so your brain may start to drift and think about other things. It may actually start to come in. So this thing's gonna wave. So what you want to do is when you're, like I said, when you're taking that hot shower or you're doing that hot bath, you want to subdue the conscious, subdue the senses, and you want to allow your subconscious to sort of start activating and allowing the unconscious to pick up on symbols, colors, smells, various things, right? While we're still on number 2, for how to prepare for your meditation, some of the things that I used to do, like I remember there was this one time, and this is where I got into working with the dragon energy, right? And I was recently read a book on ancient Babylon and Marduk and Tiamat, and it was I believe it was the Enuma Elish, right? Which talks about how Marduk rose to power, slaying the ancient goddess dragon Tiamat, and it talked about this dragon, right? And right before I was wanting to do a meditation, and I was wanting to find if there were any dragons around me, or if there was any type of dragon energy around me, right? And I believe it might have been right before I started reading that information, or right around the time that I was. I can't remember. This was about a couple of years ago. Actually, what happened was I was working with the ancient Kemetic energy, Thoth, or Djibouti, or Tahuti, however you want to pronounce it. And I was wanting to focus on the cycle of the moon, right, or the 30-day cycle, or the 28-day cycle of the month, right. I was wanting to focus on 2 things. I was wanting to earn more money in my life, and I was also wanting to master a cycle. And at that time, I was heavily in this mental state, you guys. So try to bear with me. I was wanting to master money, and I realized with money, your expenses are due every month, right? You get paid on a certain time, and every month the expenses or your bills are reset every month, right? So that monthly cycle is roughly 30 days, 31 days, maybe even 28 on certain months, right? So I realized that there was a cycle tied into this whole earning system, right? And every 28, 30, 31 days, something started, something ended. And that's why a lot of ancient spirituality or religions use the moon cycle, because it represents a cycle beginning and a cycle ending, and then there's these phases in between. So I was working with the ancient Egyptian god Djibouti, or Thoth, right? And I was I was in this mindset of this completion of the cycle and this circle energy, and I went and took a hot shower, and I got the shower as hot as I could, and it was so hot there I almost felt like I was just weak, and but it felt good, right? And then I saw this dragon in my mind sort of just kind of come up to me, right? And then I was like, in my mind, I was like, wow, okay. And then I saw it in my head, and it kind of swirled around in a circle, and it kind of came into my face, and then I didn't have a name for it, but I asked it, "What is your name?" And I didn't get a name. And so then I got out of the shower, got out of the meditation. My brain was just sort of still stuck there on that dragon. I was like, "What is this dragon? What is that?" And so then I got on my cell phone, and I started looking up ancient dragons, because it was before I started reading the ancient Babylon and the ancient Mesopotamian and the ancient Sumerian lore, right? I was involved in ancient Egyptian or ancient Kemetic spirituality, and then I got led to the ancient Sumerian, um, ancient Mesopotamian, ancient Babylonian energy, right? And so when I was looking up dragons, I came across the dragon Tiamat online, and I was like, "Oh, Tiamat! I've heard of that before." I remember there was this cartoon that I used to watch called Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid, right? And there was a dragon in it called Tiamat, and I was like, yeah, I kind of remember this dragon, this badass dragon that Venger, which was one of the wizards in the show, would have to fight or battle, because Tiamat was supposed to be so bad and evil, and she was like one of the two bad or evil things inside of the show, Venger being the other thing, right? And so I was like, oh, Tiamat. Okay. I was like, okay. So then I started researching Tiamat and the dragon, and that's when I kind of went to the ancient Sumerian, ancient Mesopotamian, ancient Babylonian lore, and I started learning about the older Anunnaki gods, and then Tiamat, and she was the elder dragon goddess before the Anunnaki, and it kind of tied into what I was already learning. And I realized, I came to the conclusion that Tiamat, or the ancient dragon, represented, she was an energy, or an animal, or an energy of time, right? And that's actually what I started learning in the ancient Babylonian, Mesopotamian, Sumerian energy, was that she was a goddess of time, or an energy of time, but could also be representative of chaos, or chaoticness, right? Because from we in the beginning, you always have chaos, right? You always have a question, a query. There's always disharmony or in order. Like I said, I was wanting to find out how to master a month, right? How to master a particular cycle of time, right? And that's when you sort of realize you've got this question, and a question is basically composed of chaos, right? It's unorderedness, it's not knowing. And then you seek to order it, you seek to order the chaos, right? And so that's what the dragon represented. It represented chaos, but if you pair it with its dual side, its dualistic side, there's order there as well, right? I know this is a long story, right? It's been an interesting path, but all these little things that you go through, they stack on top of one another, and they add to the information and the knowledge that you acquire. And then your thoughts, sort of, when you start thinking about certain things, or rationalizing, or pondering, or contemplating, these things that you've learned sort of fill in those crevices of the things that you're thinking about, and you come up with different ways of thinking, or different ways of thought, right? Okay, awesome. Glad that was understood. Okay, so preparing for a hot bath or shower, that was one of the things that helped me get in touch with that dragon energy, right? So number 3, finding your place for meditation. Very, very super duper uber important, right? It's finding a place to meditate. Some people find that they have a place in their home, maybe their whole home. Maybe they just use any place in their home whenever they want to. Some people might have a little shrine, or a little altar, a little place on bookshelf or some little ledge or something like that in their home that they use, that they might have a picture or a or incense or a sculpture of their god or goddess or whatever energy they choose to represent to work with. Or some people like to use a portion of the room. Like I use a portion of my living room, right? And in my living room, I've got like this little table, and it's got like my little canopic jars on it, which represent the four sons of Horus or Heru, which represent the four elementals, right? And then it's got sort of a replication of a concept or an archetype, right, that I had learned about working with the ancient Egyptian or ancient Kemetic information, right? It's linked to the pyramids, the three pyramids in Giza, which are also linked to the three stars in Orion's belt, right? And then also Orion itself, right? The Orion constellation. So my little shrine is composed of aspects of that particular energy system or that particular mechanism, right, of understanding. So there's a portion of my living room that is dedicated to that. Some people like to be out in the open. They like to be out in nature, whether it be at a beach, whether it be at a lake, an ocean, whether it be in the mountains. Because some people are water people, right? We all are alchemically different, right? I'm a fire sign. I don't have to be around. Like I said, I like the hot water, right? So I'm a fire sign. I love the hot water. Some people are wind signs, so they like to be out where it's very windy, or they love it when there's very windy days, right? Some people are earth signs, so they like to be around rocks or mountains or out hiking, right? Out in nature. You have some people who are water people, right? Water signs. They love to be near beaches, and they love to be near lakes, and they love to be near streams. They love when it rains, right? And then you have, I know I'm forgetting one, fire, water, earth, and wind. No, I got them all. I got them all. Okay. So, depending on your particular elemental and what you resonate with, you might feel more comfortable in one of those environments, right? So finding a place to meditate, very, very, very super duper uber important, because it's a place where you want to feel comfortable, where you want to feel at one with your environment. Not just because it looks pretty or because you like the environment the way that it looks, but more so because you want to feel safe, right? You want to make sure that you're in an environment that when you close your eyes and you start to slip off into that other world, your defenses are gone, right? When you slip into a meditation, if anything happens, you're not there anymore, right? So if something happens, it's going to take you a moment to get back to your senses so that you can comprehend what's going on. This is why you want to make sure you are in a place that's quiet, that you don't get disturbed in, and where there isn't a lot of commotion or chaotic energy. Perfect example, you're at home or you're outside and you're in that meditative state and there's always noise coming in, right? There's always a car going by, there's always a horn going off, or there's always someone running up to you and trying to get your attention. We're never going to be able to get through those different layers of working your way up and outward, right? Because you're always going to be brought back down, but physical things trying to get your attention. So you're trying to get away from the physical world, right? You're trying to let your thoughts sort of take off and become one with that other non-tangible, less physical energy. I'm going to answer a question right now. That's why up in the mountains where the monks are meditating, anyone that makes a sound gets hit for disturbing the peace of sound. Could be why. I'm not real knowledgeable with that particular Buddhism, if that's what you're referring to. But yeah, it could be very much so. Also, being up in the mountains, the air is less. It's lighter up there, so it's easier to meditate when you're at higher elevations. It's easier to be more in that lightheaded state, which is also why fasting before meditating is probably, and I should have added that to the list, is a great thing to do. Why? Because when you fast, your body's sort of empty, right? And I don't mean a complete fast. I don't dry fast. I light fast. Like I'll eat soups, sandwiches, drink water, but I won't do like heavier stuff, right? I don't eat full meals. Some people can dry fast and all they do is water. That's fine. If whatever you can do that's safe, right? But when you do go into a fast, it will affect your brain and your mind. Your thoughts would be, your head will be lighter, right? And on a physical and on an esoteric level. Your thoughts are lighter, right? Because you don't have as much food in you. Your brain feeds off of the things in your body. And when you have less in your body, you're able to be more lightheaded. And therefore, you're able to take off a little bit more into those higher levels. Which is why breathing plays an important part in your meditation. Because when you're breathing, you're putting more oxygen in your body. And that allows the brain to have more oxygen in the blood. And therefore, your mind can take off a little bit more as well. So fasting is a great way to get into a meditation outside or in addition to the hot water. But warning, be careful. If you're fasting and you take a really hot shower or get into a jacuzzi, you just might be too weak to sort of take care of yourself. So be careful when you're doing some of this stuff, right? Be comfortable, fast, but be careful and use hot water with care and caution also, right? So once again, hot water showers, definitely a good thing. That can be used, fasting and also being up in higher elevations, right? So that was number 3. Number 4, using incense for meditation. Now I know this is a big thing, right? You've got people who are just like, you have to burn the incense when you're doing meditation, right? The only thing you need when you meditate or when you do any type of work is you. You need you, and you need to be here in the physical so that you can take off and be in the ethereal or the universe, right? You don't need anything else. You don't need incense. You don't need an altar. You don't need portraits. You don't need figurines. You don't need anything, right? All you need is you and your ability to center yourself and leave. Now, granted, other things will help you get focused so that you can go into these other vibrations, right? So incense has been used to help change the senses, kind of like the hot water. Hot water helped change your physical senses, right? Incense will help the sense of smell, will invoke various feelings about you, right? So incense is a great thing to use to change the air in the room, to change the air in the area, and also to change how you feel when you're in a particular area, right? So when you're going into a meditation, if you're breathing natural, regular air, that's fine, right? But if you feel that adding, say, sage or adding dragon's blood helps you to feel like you're in that special spiritual realm, like this is the scent of higher energy or higher accessibility, then use it. But don't feel if you don't have it that you can't do it, because that's not really what it's about. You don't ever want to get tethered to needing to have tools. Perfect example, when you're doing like any sort of spiritual work. I know some people work with, especially a lot of pagans. They will use like they'll have the dagger, or they'll have the pentacle. They'll have the cup. The cup, I kind of feel like you don't have to have, but because you put water in the cup, and I feel water has an energy about it. Water is something you don't have to have, but it's kind of nice to have because it has an energy about it, right? But do you really need it? Not so much, but it's one of the things I think that could be beneficial simply because water is linked to a lot of different archetypes and energies and things of that nature. But you don't really need like the pentacle, the dagger, you don't need the incense, you don't need the candles. These things are used to change your senses so that you can get into this mindset for doing these other things, but you don't need it. And the moment you get too tethered or too tied to doing these things, when you don't have them, you'll come up with an excuse, or you may come up with an excuse that I can't do these things because I don't have those things. That is totally not true. Okay, so incense, definitely great for doing certain types of work. A perfect example, I use dragon's blood. I personally don't like sage. I don't have anything greatly against it other than I like to burn stuff inside of my home, and sometimes I don't open the windows. So sage is a very strong thing when you don't have correct airflow, right? And whenever I smell sage, it reminds me of the beach, right? And I love the beach. I love the water. It reminds me of the beach, water, and sand, that salty sand, right? And salt water, right? And so, and I love that smell, but when it's condensed, and there's not a lot of airflow, it actually can start to make you nauseous or mess with you. And you don't want to feel that way when you're doing a meditation, right? Or when you're doing any type of spiritual work. So I don't particularly prefer sage, mostly. I know some people use it for cleansing, charging, various aspects of like their home or whatever. But I do like using dragon's blood. Dragon's blood for me works really, really well. For one, it's got a sweet smell. It smells very good. It's almost like a, I don't know, like a light strawberry or a light cherry. Not even cherry. Cherry's a little bit too tart, but it's almost like a light strawberry smell to it, and it smells really, really good. I love dragon's blood. I can never say enough good things about dragon's blood. And it ties into the work that I do with the dragons, right? It goes back to that whole Tiamat a story of how Marduk slayed Tiamat and then scattered her blood. Her blood went up north and was hidden in secret places, right? And so the dragon's blood I love because it always reminds me of I'm trying to get in touch with that secret part of T, what I like to call her T, that I'm trying to get in touch with, right? And perfect example, the last time I worked with the Tiamat energy, right, was right when this COVID-19 thing happened, right? And some of us, we're very naive about things that go on in the world, right? I myself cannot deny I'm naive about things that happen in the world. But I wanted to understand what the heck was going on, right? Why did all of a sudden the U.S. or the world just got shut down, especially here in the homeland, right? In America and all over, no matter where you're at, whether you're in Italy, whether you're in China, whether you're in India, whether you're over in Africa, no matter where you're at, things got shut down. And I was like, this is just something's is just not right, right? And so I got the dragon's blood, and tea is right there on my altar, and I did my thing. I started walking around in circles. I did my walk, of 7 times, and I asked the great energies. I asked the great dragon. I was like, okay, T, you are the goddess of chaos and chaotica, right? What the hell is going on, right? Why is there this chaos in the air? What's happened? And I did my meditation afterwards, and I did a tarot card reading afterwards, and what I got was in the video that I posted about a month or a month and a half ago, called COVID-19, right? So if you have not watched that video, you need to go check that video out, because in that video I was talking about things that they're just now talking about that they think is what happened because of COVID-19, right? And a lot of that information I had gotten because I had worked with this particular energy system using these systems and these tools, in addition to using the Tiamat energy to discern what the hell was going on, right? So incense is very, very good for tapping into certain archetypes and subtle energies that you're wanting to connect with. And like I said, I prefer dragon's blood because it reminds me of the chaos dragon, where her blood is hidden in secret places. And when we do a lot of this work, we're trying to uncover, unravel, or demystify secrets, right? Or things that we don't know, right? Okay. So on to number 5, right? Using candles for meditation. Should you use candles for meditation? Once again, you don't need to use anything. You don't need anything. All you need is you, right? All you need is you. You don't need anything else. You need you. You need to be here. You need to be able to close your eyes. You need to be able to breathe. You need to be able to feel comfortable. And you eventually need to sort of be able to leave. And then we'll get into how you leave and how you prepare yourself for leaving in a later video. But you need to ponder some of these things first, as far as what you need, what you don't need, how you need to be comfortable, and things of that nature. So candles. Do you need candles? Candles, once again, you don't need, but they can help simply because, as we talked about in the first two, actually one, two, three, the first three instances, the hot shower affects the senses of the body, right? So the hotness, the fire affects the senses of the body, right? The the incense affects the senses of smell, right? That smell, which kind of goes into your mind. You breathe it in, it goes into your mind, and makes you feel a certain way, right? Candles affect the sight, and even when you have your eyes closed, you can still see the bright light, so you can sense it, right? And you can feel the hotness when you're actually when you're touching the candle, right? So candles can actually help with taking your senses from this state to the next by using it as an external object for guiding you from here and from there, right? I'm going to pause on this and I'm going to answer this question. It just hit me a dream that I had when I was a bit younger than I am now. It was a dream so clear of a dragon soaring in the sky above a city with streets of water. Well, see, that could have been a number of things, right? A numerous amount of things. Dragons, once again, are reptiles, and reptiles are usually linked with water. Um, Not all the time. There are flying dragons, for sure. In ancient Kemetic and also Indian lore, I believe, and even Japanese, which there's a reason why those particular dragons or energy, they kind of resonate through particular cultures because those cultures kind of learned the same information from a tangent, right, or a stream of consciousness or learning back then, right? But you have air dragons, you have water dragons, and you have earth dragons, right? So I know you've all have seen the healing wand. If you're in the medical profession, if you've ever been to a doctor or a hospital, you've seen the wand, which has the two serpents going around it, and it's got the wings at the top of it. Akashic, a little bit something totally different. I'll get into that later. But the dragon that has the wings on it is akin to that particular wand, that healing staff or wand, and it actually represents ascending or ascension, which to the ancients, ascending did relieve a lot of ailments of the body. So if the body was impure, if it was diseased, if it had an issue, raising its vibration physically or raising the mind would sometimes allow for the disease or the malady to leave the body, simply because it's believed that diseases or diseases, which are a diseasing of the body, of the mind, or of the soul, was represented by a particular element of the mind or of the body, right? And if you change the way the body thought or the mind thought, then sometimes these maladies would sort of resolve themselves, which is where we have the whole ideology between self-healing or using herbs or botanicals or things of this nature in order to heal the body in addition to a way of thinking, right? So dragons that flew or that fly would represent the wind element, and the wind represents the mind, right? So the wind element or the mind element, the wind element or the mind would represent the ability to mentally ascend, right? Whereas the water dragons would represent more of the emotional dragons, right? And water is linked to like very old, ancient energy, right? So a water dragon might be a very old, ancient, slow-moving energy, right? And I've actually done meditations to where there's a dragon at the bottom of a lake or at the bottom of an ocean, right? And that dragon has so much knowledge and wisdom because it's been down there for a very long time. The ocean receives so many vibrations from the planet or the world around it through a subtle means. You can pick up on that information if you work with it for quite a bit. So you have water dragons, you have air dragons, and then you also have land or earth dragons. And those dragons, they're a little bit more proficient in doing physical things, right? Building, architecture, art, anything that deals with the physical realm, right? And then fire dragons more so, I believe what this resonates with is the ability for a dragon to spit fire from its mouth, right? And that could be symbolic for a person. Let's just say, for instance, a person who works with this particular energy, and they become very proficient in the ways of the ancient world, and they become very knowledgeable, very wise, because they work with this, what is then called the dragon energy, or the ancient dragon energy. The things that they say, the words that they speak, based on the knowledge that they have, can destroy or can heal. So some of the things that you say after you learn some of this stuff, some people just won't want to hear. And you may become very passionate about your wanting to help, or your passion to deliver knowledge, right? And other people, they're just be like, look, dude, you're speaking blasphemy. I don't, or lady, you're speaking blasphemy. I don't want to hear that. What you're saying, I don't believe in, right? Or it's wrong, right? And those things become fiery from your mouth, right? And I believe that's what the fire from a dragon actually represents. It also represents how some of the reptiles, like an Egyptian cobra, or some of the snakes, would spit poison, right? They would spit this fiery, poisonous stuff, right? But I think it really goes back to how a person, once they tap into this energy, and once they're able to understand it, and they want to help, and they want to share knowledge, they have this stuff that's coming from their mouth, these words. And sometimes people are just like, I don't want to hear this. You need to hush, hush, hush. Nobody wants to hear this, right? So I think that's what the fire dragons actually can represent. Not that it does, but in my opinion, that's what it is. Okay, getting back to this question. The Akashic. The Akashic is, it depends on what your definition or version of this means. There is what's called the Akashic Records, and the Akashic Records, in a simply, is a place where everything that has happened is stored. It is believed that everything that happens in the world, everything that happens to the world, that happens in the world, that happens, right? And maybe not necessarily in this world, but that just happens, is recorded somewhere. The experience is somewhere, right? And it can always be accessed or pulled down, right? But depending on what you've learned or what you've read, this place is very hard to get to, very challenging. Some of the Egyptian books that I've read said that only certain people can get to the Akashic Records, and other people just can't. It's in a different realm. It's in a different place of being. It's in a different place of accessing, right? Years ago, right about 25 years ago, I had never heard of Akasha. I never heard of Akashic Records, any of this stuff, right? I was newly introduced by myself into ancient Egyptian information, and I was coming from a Christian background. I was born a Methodist Christian, and I was moving from that into a more spiritual or holistic world. And I was doing a meditation, and I'd been doing meditations, and then what I had a meditation, or I saw in my head, I saw Aset or Isis here. Was in front of me here, like a short little Aset, and then there was a Jesus figure that had manifested, and then a Ra or Ray figure, right? And right when the Ray or Ra figure saw the Jesus figure, he took off, right? Took off in a fucking bolt of lightning, right? He was just like, nope, don't want to be here, right? Just gone, right? But then the Isis figure, the Aset figure, was just like, so what, right? And she just like, I don't care. I was here first. That's almost the feeling I got from her. She's like, I was here first. Why am I going to have an issue with him, right? Whereas the Raw figure was just like all egotistical. He just couldn't deal with it. He was just like, and he just took off. And it may have been a portion of me at that time that was vacillating between the ancient Egyptian or the Isis Aset information, moving from the Christian paradigm, and the Ra energy. Even though my name is Ray, and it's kind of spelled the same name that Ra or Ray was, even my last name, Ray Easton, R-E, is spelled the same way that Ray would have been spelled. So I kind of took a personal interest back then in Ra Ray, because I kind of saw myself in that particular sun god. because I am a Leo, so I saw my sign and his sign and what he represented. So it may have been me projecting myself into that particular archetype and then having issues with it, whereas my other higher feminine self, being Isis or Aset, really had no problem with it. She's like, I just don't have a problem with this. So I think that might have been what that represented. But this was something way back when I didn't even understand what the hell was going on, right? It just happened. But I had been meditating, and this name came to me. This name came to me, and I thought, you know what, this would be a great name for a baby girl. If I ever have a girl, I would like to call her this. And the name that came to me was Akasha, right? I had never heard anything about Akasha, Akashic records, nothing at all, right? And so years later, I came across some information that talked about the Akashic records and how it was this vault of information, how nobody can get to it, and yada yada blah blah, yada yada blah blah, right? And so I was like, okay. So little things like that will happen to you throughout your life. Once again, synchronicities. This point and that point, but this point will add to your experience, and next thing you know, the mysteries start to unfold or start to open up, right? Okay, let's go back. It says here, perhaps the real psychic. I believe psychic people have a strong connection to the Akashic. Psychic, it could be true. Psychic is a very loose term, and I really don't like that term. Because I am the type of person that I am. If you guys have watched my videos and have watched my information for a period of time, you know how I am. I'm very pro my learning system, and I acknowledge other systems, but I don't. When as far as anything modern, I don't really like modern information or modernism, because it's based off of older ancient stuff, but then just changed to be more modern. And when people get a hold of old information and they modernize it, then it just loses it becomes watery, right? So for me, psychic, if I had to define psychic would be an energy, right? It is any type of energy that is linked to subtle energy, right? And subtle energy is energy which not necessarily can be seen, but it can be felt or sensed, right? So a person that can feel or sense things that have not necessarily manifested, that are in the process of manifesting, that has manifested but cannot be seen, the ability to discern or feel that particular energy or vibration would be the psychic, right? The psychic, not particularly a person, not like a psychic person, but the means, right? The ability to discern. So when you say when you so when you say psychic people, then you know what? Everybody has some degree of ability to sense, right? Can they access the Akashic records? No. No, they can't. So I'm not making fun of you. I'm just making light of the situation, because this is a lot of this work is really serious, but sometimes you just kind of have to laugh at it, right? You have to. Yes, people have become completely conformed to the modern idea of life. Yes. So basically, my definition of psychic is not everybody's definition of psychic, and I have words that I use that are not words that other people would use for certain things. So, like I said, psychic. My definition of psychic is it's an energy which can be detected on the subtle levels. So a person who has the ability to sense on the subtle levels, right? Not necessarily the physical, but on the subtle vibrational levels, are using the psychic energy, right, in order to pick up on those things, right? As far as a person being psychic, anybody can be psychic. Most people, to a degree, especially females, women, because they have a innate ability to feel because of their dynamics, because of how they're designed, how they're made to feel, right? And so they are linked to a lot of these spiritual cultures, or these metaphysical, these esoteric cultures, because they feel on a subtle level, right? And so therefore their intuitions are usually a little more higher, unless they dull them down because they live in the physical world too much, right? Men, on the other hand, we are designed to do more physical things, to be more physical, and therefore our physical world is the main thing, and we're less intuitive unless we work on it. So Instagram is telling me I have 10 seconds to go, you guys. I'm sorry, I didn't know there was a closure on this. But once again, check out my video on YouTube. Click my bio link for the full video. This is Ray Easton, aka Ray Ia, with the Entry of Life channel. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye. All right. So that was the Instagram feed coming to an end. You guys, thanks for watching. This is the full video here. It's only full in like so many more minutes than the actual Instagram video. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions about meditation or preparing to meditate, go ahead and hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, or any of the other channels that I'm on, and I'm more than happy to talk to you guys about this stuff. Once again, my name is Ray Easton, aka Ray Ia, with the Entry of Life channel. Thanks for watching, and you guys be safe. Love you all, and I'll talk to you guys later. All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.